I used to think waking up in the middle of the night was just anxiety, just stress, just my body still grieving someone my spirit had not learned how to release. But there was one night. I woke up suddenly. No alarm. No noise. No reason. The room was dark. My throat felt dry. My chest had that strange pressure, like something had touched an old wound while I was sleeping. I reached for my phone. 3:33. And I remember just staring at it. Not blinking. Not fully awake. Just sitting there in the dark with this strange feeling that I was not alone. Not in a frightening way. More like something was watching over the part of me that had been too tired to keep asking for signs. At first, I told myself it meant nothing. But then it happened again. Another night. 3:33. Then again. During the season when everything in my life felt uncertain. Right after the separation. Right after the silence became unbearable. Right after I stopped chasing someone who still lived in my nervous system like unfinished prayer. And that is when I began wondering. What if the night you woke up at 3:33 was not random? What if heaven was not trying to scare you, but reposition you? What if your soul woke up at that hour because something in the unseen was shifting around your union? Think about it. Why did 3:33 appear during your loneliest season? Why did it happen right after you cried yourself quiet? Why did your body wake before your mind had answers? Why did your heart feel heavy, but your intuition feel strangely awake? Maybe your spirit was not being disturbed. Maybe it was being summoned. Maybe heaven was moving you out of an old emotional timeline and placing you closer to the version of yourself your mirror soul could finally recognize. Not the wounded version. Not the chasing version. Not the version who kept confusing anxiety with love. The aligned version. The honest version. The one who had survived enough pain to stop calling chaos destiny. So if you have been waking up at 3:33, especially during heartbreak, silence, separation, or emotional transformation, stay with this message, because the hour may not have been random. It may have been the moment heaven began positioning your union. And by the end of this video, you may finally understand why your soul woke up before your life changed. Part 1: The night you woke up without knowing why. I remember the first time it happened. Not the first time I woke up in the middle of the night, but the first time the hour felt like it was staring back at me. There was no alarm, no loud sound outside, no message lighting up the room, no reason my body should have suddenly opened its eyes like that. I was just awake, completely awake, the kind of awake that feels different from normal sleep interruption. Not groggy, not half-dreaming, just pulled out of sleep, like something invisible had touched my shoulder. The room was dark, too still. There was that faint blue shadow on the wall that only appears in the middle of the night, when the world feels like it has stopped moving for everyone except you. My throat was dry. My chest felt tight. Not panic exactly, but not peace either. More like my body had remembered something before my mind did. I reached for my phone. You know that movement. Automatic. Almost unconscious. The hand reaching before the thought forms. The screen lighting up too bright in the darkness. Your eyes squinting against it. And there it was. 3:33. I just stared at it. Not blinking. Not even fully understanding why it made my stomach drop. It was just a number. At least, that is what I tried to tell myself. Just a number. Just a random hour. Just sleep disruption. Just stress. Just grief. But something about it felt charged. Like the moment had weight. Like the silence around me had suddenly become full of something I could not name. And I remember lying there with the phone still in my hand, feeling strangely exposed. Not afraid. Not exactly comforted either. More like seen. as if the part of me that had been pretending all day had finally been caught in the dark. During the day, I could manage it better. The heartbreak, the silence, the separation, the unfinished feeling. I could stay busy, answer messages, make coffee, open my laptop, act normal, say, I'm okay, with enough timing that people believed me. But night does something different. Night removes the performance. At night, there is no one to convince, no one to distract, no one to impress with your strength. It is just you, your breathing, your memories, and the truth your body has been carrying quietly all day. That night, when I saw 333, the first thought was not spiritual. It was human, messy, small, a little embarrassing. I thought, are they awake too? That is the kind of thing heartbreak does. It makes the mind reach for the person before it reaches for God. Even when you are trying to heal. Even when you know you should let go. Even when you have told yourself 100 times that you are done waiting. There are moments when your heart still searches for them in the silence. You wonder if they feel it too. If they ever wake up with your name heavy in their chest. If the connection still visits them the way it visits you. If the silence is hurting them too. Or if you are the only one lying there at 333, trying not to cry over something you cannot explain anymore. That is the painful part. Not just missing someone. Wondering if the missing is mutual. Wondering if your soul is the only one still listening. I remember scrolling through nothing. Not even opening anything important. Just touching the screen like it could regulate me. Like the phone could somehow become proof. Proof that they still cared. Proof that the connection was not dead. Proof that I had not imagined the depth. But there was no message. No sign from them. No sudden confession. No emotional rescue. Just 333 glowing in my hand. And the quiet room. And me. That was all. But something in me felt different after that night. Not healed. Not clear. Not magically calm. Different. Like a small crack had opened between the pain and the meaning of the pain. I did not understand it yet, but part of me started wondering. What if this is not only anxiety? What if my body is waking up because my spirit is trying to get my attention? What if heaven speaks differently when the world is asleep? Those questions scared me a little, because I did not want to become the kind of person who needed signs to survive. I did not want to look desperate. I did not want to attach meaning to numbers just because my heart was broken. There is a strange shame that comes with wanting something to be divine. You almost judge yourself for it. You think, maybe I'm just trying to make the pain feel important. Maybe I just want the separation to mean something because meaningless pain feels unbearable. That is honest. And I think many people on the twin flame journey feel that quietly. They want to believe the signs are real, but they are also afraid of being fooled by their own longing. So they dismiss it. Then it happens again. Another night. Another sudden awakening. Another dark room. Another phone screen. 333. And then again. Not every night. Not predictably. But enough that your soul starts paying attention. Enough that it stops feeling like a coincidence. Especially when it happens during emotional moments. After crying. After praying. After finally deciding not to send the message. After dreaming of them. After a day where you felt strangely detached from your old life. That is when 333 starts feeling less like a number. And more like an interruption. A sacred interruption. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just persistent. Like heaven whispering, "Wake up!" Not just from sleep. From the emotional timeline you have been trapped inside. That is the part one did not understand in the beginning. I thought waking up at 333 was about the person. About whether they were thinking of me. about whether union was close, about whether they missed me. But slowly, painfully, I started realizing the hour was not only pointing outward, it was pointing inward, to the parts of me that were still asleep inside attachment, to the parts of me that kept confusing emotional intensity with destiny, to the parts of me that kept waiting for someone else's awakening while ignoring my own. Maybe that is what happened to you too. Maybe you woke up at 3:33 during a season when your life already felt uncertain. Maybe the connection had gone quiet. Maybe someone you loved became distant. Maybe you were trying so hard not to care anymore, but your body kept betraying you. Maybe you would fall asleep exhausted, then wake up suddenly with your chest heavy, your heart racing softly, and that strange feeling that something unseen was happening. And when you saw the time, 3:33, you felt it. Even if you tried to deny it, you felt the pause, the question, the invisible pressure behind the moment. Why now? Why this hour? Why during this season? Why does my body wake before my mind has answers? Why does the room feel empty? But not empty? That contradiction is hard to describe. Feeling alone, but not abandoned. Feeling heartbroken, but strangely guided. Feeling confused, but awake in a way you cannot explain. That is often how spiritual positioning begins. Not with certainty, not with a clean message, not with a perfect sign that removes all doubt. It begins with disturbance, a gentle disturbance, the kind that pulls you out of unconsciousness long enough to notice what your soul has been trying to show you. For a long time, you may have been moving through pain on autopilot, checking, waiting, overthinking, replaying, trying to understand someone's silence, trying to decide whether to let go or keep hoping, trying to read their energy through memory, trying to make sense of why the connection felt so deep but so painful. And then 3:33 appears, not to give you every answer, to stop the loop for 1 second, to bring you back into the present moment, into your body, into the quiet, into the awareness that something bigger than your panic may be moving around you. I know that may sound soft, but when you are in separation, even 1 second of presence is powerful. 1 second where you are not chasing, not begging, not decoding, not abandoning yourself for answers. Just awake, just aware, just sitting in the dark with your soul. That moment matters, more than you know, because your union cannot be positioned while your entire inner world is still orbiting fear. Heaven cannot move you into alignment while every part of your energy is still waiting outside a closed emotional door. Something has to interrupt the pattern. Sometimes it is heartbreak. Sometimes it is silence. Sometimes it is a dream. Sometimes it is waking up at 3:33 with tears already sitting behind your eyes for no clear reason. And maybe you thought you were being punished by sleeplessness. Maybe you thought the night waking meant you were not healing. But what if your spirit was not failing to rest? What if your spirit was being called to listen? There is a difference. Anxiety wakes you and throws you into fear. Spiritual awakening wakes you and leaves you with a question. A quiet question. A holy question. What is my soul trying to show me? Not what are they doing? Not do they miss me? Not will they come back? But what is being repositioned inside me right now? That question changes everything. Because the moment you ask it, you stop making the sign only about them. You begin realizing heaven may have been working on your union by working on you. Your perception, your attachment, your readiness, your ability to recognize peace, your willingness to leave the timelines that keep making you feel abandoned. That night at 3:33 may have been the first moment your soul woke up before your life did. Your outer world may still have looked the same. Same bedroom, same phone, same silence, Same ache. But internally, something had shifted. A tiny opening. A deeper awareness. A feeling that the pain was not the whole story. And sometimes that is all heaven gives at first. Not the full map. Just enough light to keep you from believing the darkness is empty. So if you woke up at 3:33 and could not explain why, if you stared at the number and felt your heart pull inward, if the room felt silent but strangely alive, do not rush to dismiss it. Do not force it either. Just sit with the possibility. Your body may have woken because your spirit was being repositioned. Your grief may have opened a doorway your mind was not ready to understand. Your soul may have been receiving a signal before your reality showed evidence. And the reason it happened during your hardest season may be the part that matters most. Because signs do not always come when life is easy. Sometimes they come when you are too tired to keep pretending. Sometimes they come when your heart has finally gone quiet enough to hear what heaven has been whispering all along. And once you realize the hour carried energy, you start asking the deeper question. Why did 3:33 appear when your heart was most exhausted? That is where the next part begins. Lesson of this chapter. Sometimes the body wakes when the spirit is trying to get your attention. Waking at 3:33 may not be about fear. It may be about awareness. A moment where heaven interrupts the emotional loop just long enough for your soul to listen. And when the sign appears during your loneliest season, it may be pointing to something deeper than coincidence. Part 2:3:33 appeared when your heart was most exhausted. There is something about emotional exhaustion that makes the night feel different. Not just darker, heavier, like the room is holding everything you were too busy to feel during the day. I used to think signs would come when I was peaceful, when I was meditating perfectly, when I had finally let go, when my heart was clean enough to receive some kind of divine message. But that is not how it happened for me. 3:33 came when I was tired. Not sleepy. Tired in the soul. The kind of tired where even crying feels like work. The kind where you lie in bed with your eyes open and your body feels both empty and overstimulated at the same time. Your mind keeps replaying moments, but your heart no longer has the strength to argue with them. I remember one night after the separation had already gone quiet. Not fresh, not new, past the first shock, past the stage where everyone still asks if you are okay, past the part where you can openly say, "It hurts," and people still know what you are talking about. This was later, the lonely later, the stage where people assume you should be doing better by now, where the world moves on from your heartbreak before your nervous system does. That night, I was not even crying dramatically. I was just lying there, phone beside me, face turned toward the wall, the room completely still, and my chest had this dull ache, not sharp enough to scare me, not soft enough to ignore, just there, a quiet pressure, like my heart had been holding its breath for too long. I had spent the whole day pretending I was fine. I answered messages. I made food I barely tasted. I smiled at something someone said, even though my mind was somewhere else. I even laughed once, then immediately felt strange afterward, almost guilty, like laughing meant I was betraying the part of me that still missed them. That is the emotional aftermath people rarely talk about. You do not just miss the person. You miss the emotional permission to be affected. In the beginning, heartbreak is visible. People understand why you are quiet, why you look tired, why your voice sounds different. But after a while, your grief becomes inconvenient. So you learn to hide it better. You stop mentioning their name. You stop explaining the same pain. You stop saying, "I still feel them," because you know how it sounds. You start carrying the ache privately. And nighttime becomes the only place where it can finally breathe. That is when 3:33 appeared again. I woke up suddenly, not from a dream I could remember, not from a sound, just awake. My heart was beating faster than it should have been. My body felt alert, but there was no danger in the room. No footsteps, no message, no emergency. Just me, the dark, and that strange feeling that something unseen had entered the silence before I did. I reached for the phone. 3:33. Again. And this time, I did not roll my eyes at it. I did not immediately call it a coincidence. I just stared. The screen lit up my face in that cold blue way phones do at night. My eyes felt dry. My hand was shaky. And I remember whispering, "Why now?" Not loudly. Barely even a voice. Why now? Why did this number keep appearing when I felt most abandoned? Why did heaven seem to speak after the person stopped showing up? Why did the sign come during the hours when my heart felt too exhausted to keep hoping? That question stayed with me. Maybe it has stayed with you too. Maybe 3:33 did not show up during some perfect spiritual season. Maybe it came when you were drained, after the long silence, after another day of trying not to check their page, after deleting a message you almost sent, after telling yourself you were done, then still wondering if they could feel you somehow. Maybe you woke up at 3:33 with your chest tight and your mind instantly going to them. Maybe your first instinct was not prayer. Maybe it was longing. Are they awake? Are they thinking about me? Do they miss me? Did they feel that too? That does not make you weak. It makes you human. When someone has lived inside your emotional body for long enough, your nervous system keeps searching for them even after your mind tries to move forward. The body reaches for the familiar, even when the familiar hurt. That is why signs can feel so confusing during heartbreak. Part of you wants them to mean union. Part of you wants them to mean they're coming back. Part of you wants heaven to confirm that nothing was wasted, that the ache had purpose, that the connection was real, that you were not foolish for feeling so deeply. And underneath all of that, there is another need, a quieter one. You want proof that you have not been forgotten, not by them, not by God, not by your own destiny. That is why 3:33 can hit so deeply. It arrives at the exact hour when your defenses are down. No makeup, no performance, no carefully worded explanation, no pretending, just your real heart in the dark. And often, that is when the spirit is most reachable. Not when you are strong, when you are honest. I used to think exhaustion meant I was failing my healing. Like if I were truly awakening, I would feel calm, detached, above it, less affected. But real awakening does not always look composed. Sometimes awakening looks like waking up at 3:33 with swollen eyes and a heart that still wants answers. Sometimes it looks like admitting, I still miss them. I still do not understand. I still want the story to mean something. Sometimes it looks like being too tired to keep lying to yourself. And that tiredness, as painful as it feels, can become sacred. Not because pain is beautiful. Pain is pain. But exhaustion removes the performance. It strips away the spiritual ego. It takes away the part of you that tries to sound healed before you are. And in that rawness, something deeper can reach you. A sign, a dream, a repeated number, a sudden knowing, a quiet pull back into your own body. 3:33 did not appear because you had everything figured out. It appeared when your spirit was too exhausted to keep running from itself. That is the part one began to understand. The sign was not rewarding me for being strong. It was meeting me when strength had run out. There is a tenderness in that, a divine tenderness. The kind that does not need you to look perfect before it finds you. The kind that comes into the room when you are messy, confused, still attached, still aching, still unsure whether you are healing or just surviving. And it whispers, "I see you here too." Not only the polished version, not only the prayerful version, not only the version that says all the right spiritual things. The real one, the one clutching the phone, the one trying not to cry, the one still hoping for a message, the one ashamed of how much they care, the one who wants to let go but does not know where to put all that love. Heaven meets that version too. Maybe especially that version. And perhaps 333 appeared during your exhaustion because your soul was entering a new sensitivity. After emotional collapse, the inner world changes. You become more aware of energy, more aware of silence, more aware of what your body has been carrying. The noise that once distracted you begins to fade. The relationship may have gone quiet. The texts may have stopped. The outside world may feel strangely distant. But inside, your spirit is becoming louder. Not comfortable, louder. You start feeling things you used to avoid. The fear of being left, the hunger to be chosen, the ache of not feeling fully met, the shame of waiting, the quiet anger you never allowed yourself to feel. And as those emotions rise, so does your spiritual awareness. That is why signs often appear during the breaking point, not before. Before, you may have been too distracted by the chase, too busy reading their energy, too focused on the next message, too attached to what they were doing. But after exhaustion sets in, after your soul finally whispers, "I cannot keep living like this," something opens, a tiny opening, a crack in the emotional loop. And through that crack, a sign can enter. 333. Not as a magic solution, not as a guarantee that everything will unfold the way your wounded heart wants. More like a marker, a spiritual timestamp, a quiet signal that the season you are in is not meaningless. Something is being repositioned. Something is being loosened. Something is being moved out of the way. And at first, that can feel like loss. It can feel like the person is being taken farther from you. It can feel like the life you imagined is slipping out of reach. It can feel like heaven is silent except for a number on a screen. But what if the silence was part of the positioning? What if heaven stopped giving you external reassurance because external reassurance would have kept you attached to the wrong timeline? What if the sign appeared not to pull you back toward them, but to pull you inward, toward the version of you that sacred union actually requires? That question changes the meaning of the night. Suddenly, 333 is not just a number you saw while missing someone. It becomes a moment where heaven interrupted your emotional exhaustion with awareness. It becomes the point where your spirit started listening differently, not to their silence, to your own soul. And that is where the deeper journey begins. Because once you realize the sign came when your heart was most tired, you start understanding that your exhaustion was not the end of the path. It was the place where the old timeline began losing its grip. Lesson of this chapter: 333 did not appear because you were perfectly healed. It appeared when your spirit was exhausted enough to stop performing strength. Sometimes heaven speaks after everything else goes silent, not to give you instant answers, but to remind your soul that the silence is not empty. And when the sign arrives during your deepest exhaustion, it may be the beginning of your separation from an old emotional timeline. Part 3: Heaven was pulling you out of the wrong emotional timeline. I did not realize how much of my future I had built around someone who could not fully meet me. That sentence still feels uncomfortable. Not because it is dramatic, because it is honest. There was a time when I had already imagined so much. Not loudly, not in a way I would have admitted to anyone, but quietly, inside. I had imagined the return, the conversation, the apology, the moment where they would finally understand what I had been feeling all along. I imagined them looking at me differently, softer, clearer, like something in them had finally awakened. And in that imagined future, all the pain suddenly made sense. The silence had a reason. The waiting had a purpose. The distance was just part of the story. I needed that imagined future. I think that is the part one was ashamed to admit. It was not only the person I was attached to. It was the timeline. The version of life where everything eventually worked out the way my heart had been begging it to. The version where they came back healed. Where I did not have to feel foolish for waiting. Where the connection became proof that my intuition had been right. Where the ache finally turned into arrival. That timeline lived inside me like a secret room. And every time reality disappointed me, I went back there. When they did not text. I went back there. When their energy felt distant. I went back there. When I felt them slipping away. I went back there. I told myself, this is not the end. They are just afraid. They need time. Heaven is still working on this. And maybe part of that was true. Maybe they were afraid. Maybe they did need time. Maybe something spiritual was unfolding in ways neither of us could understand yet. But there is a dangerous place where faith becomes avoidance. Where hope stops healing you and starts keeping you emotionally trapped. I lived there for a while. Maybe you have too. In that place where you are not fully with them. But you are not free either. You are not in the relationship. But you are still emotionally loyal to the possibility of it. You are not receiving love. But you are still arranging your inner world around the chance that love might return. That is a painful timeline to live in. Invisible to everyone else. From the outside, people think you are single. They think you are moving forward. They think you are just healing from something that ended. But inside, your heart is still keeping a seat open. Still waiting for one more sign. One more dream. One more message. One more confirmation that the story is not finished. And then 333 appears. Right in the middle of that hidden waiting. Not when you are fully detached. Not when you have perfectly surrendered. But when part of you is still secretly negotiating with the past. I remember waking up at 3:33 one night after I had spent the whole day pretending I was done. I told myself I was moving on. I deleted a few photos. I avoided checking their page. I even felt proud of myself for a few hours. Then night came, and the longing returned. Quiet at first, then heavier. I laid in bed trying to sleep, but my mind kept building scenes. What if they text tomorrow? What if they are thinking about me right now? What if this silence is just the pause before union? What if I let go too soon? That question always got me. What if I let go too soon? It kept me emotionally tied to something that was already hurting me. It made release feel like betrayal. It made surrender feel like failure. It made me afraid that choosing myself would somehow interrupt destiny. Then I woke up. 3:33. The room was dark. My chest was heavy. And there was this strange feeling. Like something had interrupted the fantasy mid-sentence. Not harshly. Not with judgment. More like heaven whispering. Look at what you are still living inside. Not what they're doing. Not whether they miss you. Not whether they will come back. Look at the timeline you keep returning to. Look at the future you keep using to avoid the pain of the present. Look at the version of love you are still protecting. Even though it keeps making you feel abandoned. That realization hurt. Because sometimes the hardest thing to release is not the person. It is the future you thought they belonged to. The future where you did not have to start over. The future where your waiting was rewarded. The future where your pain was finally explained by their return. The future where all the emotional suffering became part of a beautiful testimony. But what if heaven was trying to pull you out of that timeline? What if 333 appeared because your soul was being moved away from a future that would have kept you shrinking? What if the life you kept praying for was not actually the life your spirit was created to enter? That question can feel almost offensive when you are still attached. Because the heart says, no, this is the one. This is the path. This has to be the story. But the body tells another story. The body remembers the anxiety, the waiting, the inconsistency, the way you lost your appetite during the silence, the way you measured your worth through their attention, the way your nervous system became trained to brace for emotional withdrawal. A timeline can look romantic in the imagination and still be unsafe in the body. That is what I had to learn. I had built a future around a feeling, a powerful feeling, a real feeling, a feeling I still do not deny. But feelings alone do not make a timeline holy. A connection can be spiritually significant and still not be the timeline heaven wants you trapped in. Some people are awakeners. Some are mirrors. Some are catalysts. Some enter your life carrying the exact emotional charge needed to expose where your soul is still bound. And once that exposure happens, heaven begins the repositioning, not always by giving you more, often by taking away what keeps you looping. The conversation you wanted does not happen. The apology does not come. The sign you expected does not arrive in the way you wanted. The door stays quiet, and in that quiet, 333 appears, not as proof that the old timeline will return, as a signal that your soul is being pulled out of it. I know that may be hard to hear, especially if part of you still wants the sign to mean they're coming back exactly as you imagined. I understand that ache. I know what it feels like to want heaven to confirm your attachment, to want the number to say, yes, keep waiting. Yes, they're the one. Yes, the pain will end in the way your heart wants. But sometimes signs do not confirm the fantasy. Sometimes signs interrupt it. Sometimes heaven loves you enough to wake you up before the future you keep praying for becomes another version of emotional survival. Ask yourself gently, what future were you still trying to save? Was it truly love? Or was it the fear of starting over? Were you praying for union? Or praying not to feel abandoned? Were you holding space for them? Or holding yourself hostage to their possible awakening? Those questions are not meant to shame you. They are meant to bring you back into honesty, because a soul cannot be positioned for sacred union while it is still emotionally living inside a karmic timeline. And karmic does not always mean evil. Sometimes karmic simply means unfinished. A pattern, a lesson, a pull that keeps repeating until you finally see what it is asking you to heal. The timeline may have been built on longing, on proving yourself, on waiting for someone to become emotionally available, on believing that love becomes more meaningful when it is harder to receive. And heaven saw what that timeline would cost you. Your peace, your softness, your confidence, your ability to trust love without bracing. So the interruption came. 333. In the dark, when your defenses were down, when your heart was too tired to keep performing strength, when the imagined future had become louder than the present moment. And maybe that number was not saying, hold on tighter. Maybe it was saying, wake up, you're being moved. Moved out of the timeline where you keep waiting for someone to choose you halfway. Moved out of the fantasy where pain has to become proof. Moved out of the emotional loop where your future depends on another person's readiness. Moved closer to the version of yourself who can receive love without losing identity. That is positioning. It does not always feel like blessing at first. Sometimes it feels like grief, like withdrawal, like silence, like God closing doors you still wanted to decorate, like heaven removing emotional possibilities you had been using to survive. I remember realizing one day that I was not only grieving what happened, I was grieving what would not happen. The imagined conversation, the healed version of them, the reunion scene, the future I had replayed so many times it almost felt like memory. Letting go of an imagined future can hurt as much as letting go of a real past. No one tells you that. You are mourning something you never fully had, but emotionally lived inside for months, maybe years. And when heaven pulls you out of that timeline, the body panics. It says, "But where do I go now? Who am I without this possibility? What does my life become if this story is not the one?" That is where faith becomes real. Not the faith that waits outside someone's closed door forever. The faith that trusts God even when the timeline you wanted begins dissolving. The faith that says, "I do not understand why this door is closing, but I will not keep shrinking to fit inside it." The faith that lets heaven reposition you without needing every explanation first. And that is not easy. It is not peaceful right away. There may be nights when 333 feels comforting, and other nights when it feels like a reminder that your life is changing faster than your heart can accept. Both can be true. You can be guided and grieving, protected and confused, repositioned and still missing someone. Awakening does not erase the human ache. It gives the ache somewhere sacred to go. And slowly, as the wrong timeline loses its grip, something else begins forming. A quieter future. One that is not built around chasing. One that does not require you to abandon your nervous system for chemistry. One where union is not something you beg for, but something you become available for through healing. That is why 333 matters in this chapter. It appeared when heaven began separating your soul from a future that looked like love, but felt like survival. And once that separation begins, your body may grieve, your mind may resist, your heart may bargain, but your spirit knows. Somewhere deep inside, your spirit knows when a timeline has expired. It knows when the imagined future is no longer aligned with the soul you are becoming. It knows when heaven is not taking something from you, but moving you out of a life where you would have kept disappearing. And maybe that is what happened the night you woke up. Maybe 333 was not only a sign. Maybe it was a doorway, not into immediate union, into repositioning, out of the old timeline, into the field where real union could someday meet you without requiring you to betray yourself first. That is where the next layer begins. Because when heaven pulls you out of the wrong timeline, your body does not instantly feel free. It detoxes. It trembles. It misses the very thing your soul is releasing. And that is where the next chapter begins. Lesson of this chapter. Sometimes heaven closes an emotional timeline before your heart has the courage to leave it. 333 may appear when your soul is being pulled away from a future built on waiting, chasing, and emotional survival. It does not always mean the old story is returning. Sometimes it means you are being repositioned for a love that will not require you to disappear. Part for your nervous system was detoxing from the wrong pull. The hardest nights were not always the nights where I missed them most. Sometimes, the hardest nights were the ones where my body missed the pattern. That took me a long time to admit. I wanted to believe I only missed the person, their voice, their face, the way they used to look at me when everything still felt alive, the conversations that made time disappear, the little moments that felt too specific to be meaningless. But after enough silence, after enough waking up at strange hours, after enough nights staring at the ceiling while my chest carried a pressure I could not explain, I began to realize something uncomfortable. My body was not only grieving love, it was detoxing from uncertainty. And uncertainty can become addictive when your nervous system has been trained to survive on almost consistency, almost clarity, almost choosing you, almost love. That is the kind of emotional pattern that keeps your whole body alert. You do not feel calm, but you feel connected. You do not feel secure, but you feel pulled. You do not feel fully chosen, but every small sign feels powerful enough to keep you waiting. I remember waking up around 3:33 during that season with my heart already beating fast. No dream I could remember. No real danger. Nothing happening in the room. Just my body acting like something had been taken from me while I was asleep. And the first instinct was always the same. Reach for the phone. Check. See if they had messaged. See if something had changed. See if the silence had finally broken. The screen would light up my face in the dark. And there would be nothing. No message. No missed call. No sign from them. Just 3:33. And that empty screen felt like rejection all over again. Isn't it strange how silence can feel physical? How an unanswered phone can make your stomach drop? How a lack of response can feel like a door closing in your chest? That is not weakness. That is the nervous system reacting to attachment. When someone becomes emotionally unpredictable, your body starts tracking them for safety. Their warmth becomes relief. Their distance becomes threat. Their attention becomes oxygen. Their silence becomes withdrawal. And after enough cycles, your body begins to confuse the return of relief with love itself. I did not understand that at first. When they came close, I felt alive. When they pulled away, I felt abandoned. When they returned, I felt chosen. When they disappeared, I felt like I had done something wrong. That cycle became so familiar that my body started mistaking it for destiny. The intensity felt spiritual. The ache felt meaningful. The anxiety felt like proof. But slowly, 3:33 kept interrupting the pattern. Not with a loud answer. Not with a clear explanation. Just by waking me up in the middle of the emotional loop. A strange hour. A quiet room. A heavy chest. A number glowing on the screen. And each time, it was almost like heaven was asking me something I did not want to answer. Do you miss them? Or do you miss the relief they used to give you after making you afraid? That question hurt. It still hurts, even now. Because when you are attached, you do not want to separate the person from the pattern. You want to believe your longing is pure. Romantic. Spiritual. A sign of soul recognition. And sometimes there is real soul recognition there. Sometimes the connection did touch something deep. Sometimes the bond was not imagined. But a connection can be real. And still create a pattern your body needs to detox from. Both can be true. That is the part people do not like. We want one clean answer. Either they were your destiny, or they were a mistake. Either the love was real, or you were delusional. Either the sign means union, or it means nothing. But emotional truth is rarely that simple. Someone can awaken your soul and still trigger your wounds. Someone can feel familiar and still not feel safe. Someone can be important and still not be the person your nervous system can build peace with. And when heaven starts positioning your union, the wrong pull has to weaken first. Not because what you felt was fake, because what you were attached to was not only love. It was a cycle. The waiting, the hoping, the checking, the emotional crash, the sudden warmth, the temporary relief, the return of anxiety, the need for another sign. That cycle becomes a kind of spiritual fog. You cannot hear your intuition clearly inside it. You cannot feel your own body clearly inside it. You cannot tell the difference between a divine pull and an abandonment wound begging to be resolved. So heaven lets the silence stretch, not to torture you, to reveal the dependency, to show you what your body keeps reaching for, to help you notice the moment your hand moves toward the phone before your mind even decides. That small movement says so much. It says, I am still looking outside myself for regulation. It says, I am still waiting for their energy to tell me whether I am okay. It says, I have not fully come home yet. I remember one night after waking at 3:33, I almost sent the message. A long one. The kind you write when the heart is tired of being quiet. I opened the thread, typed a few lines, deleted them, typed again, deleted again. My hands were shaking slightly. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. And underneath the urge to speak, there was something else. Not love, panic. The message was not really about connection. It was about trying to stop the ache. I wanted their response to calm the part of me that did not know how to sit with uncertainty. That realization made me put the phone down. I did not feel strong. I felt raw, almost embarrassed. I remember whispering into the dark, I do not want to keep needing this. That was the first honest prayer. Not bring them back. Not make them understand. Not show me if this is my person. Just, I do not want to keep needing this. Sometimes the most sacred prayers are not polished. They are tired, messy, half-spoken. They come from a body that has finally reached the edge of its own pattern. And maybe that is where you are too. Maybe 3:33 has been appearing during the nights when your body wants to reach backward. When you feel the ache rising. When the silence feels too wide. When part of you wants to reopen the door just to feel something familiar again. Maybe the hour is not only comforting you. Maybe it is showing you the detox. The false pull weakening. The attachment losing its grip. The nervous system learning how to survive without the old emotional drug. That process does not feel beautiful at first. It feels like emptiness. It feels like shaking. It feels like missing someone with your whole body, even while your soul knows the pattern was hurting you. It feels like wanting the message, and knowing the message might reopen the wound. It feels like grief and wisdom fighting in the same room. The heart says, one more time. The body says, I miss the familiar. The soul says, please do not go back to what made you disappear. That inner conflict can make you feel unstable, but it is actually part of the separation from the wrong pull. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not failing because you still feel them. You are detoxing from a field your body had learned to orbit. And detox is not gentle. It brings cravings, flashbacks, emotional waves, sudden memories, dreams that feel too real. Nights where you wake up with their name in your mind and no explanation for why. Then 3:33 appears. Again, like a timestamp in the middle of the withdrawal. A quiet witness. A reminder that something is being processed beneath the surface. I think that is why heaven often speaks in the night. At night, the ego is tired. The defenses are softer. The performance has gone quiet. The body tells the truth. And when the body tells the truth, you finally see what the daytime version of you keeps managing. You see how much you were waiting. How much you were bracing. How much you had organized your emotional world around, whether someone came close or pulled away. That is a painful thing to see. But it is also freeing. Because once you see the pattern, you are no longer fully trapped inside it. A small space opens. Tiny. Almost invisible. But sacred. The next time the urge comes, you pause for 1 second. Then 2. Then 5. You put the phone down. You breathe. You let the ache move through without obeying it immediately. That is how the false pull weakens. Not through one grand decision. Through small refusals. Not tonight. Not this message. Not this loop. Not this version of love. And every refusal returns a little energy to your body. You begin to feel yourself again. Not all at once. A little. You notice your shoulders are less tense. You sleep for an extra hour. You eat without forcing it. You laugh and do not feel as guilty. You hear a song connected to them and it still hurts. But it does not destroy the whole day. These are quiet miracles. Nobody claps for them. Nobody sees them. But heaven does. Your nervous system is learning that peace is not danger. Stillness is not abandonment. Silence is not always rejection. And love does not have to come through panic. This is where union positioning becomes deeper. Your mirror soul cannot meet you in a field where your body still worships emotional instability. Sacred union requires a nervous system that can recognize peace without distrusting it. It requires a heart that does not confuse anxiety with confirmation. It requires a soul that is no longer addicted to being chosen by what keeps disappearing. So the detox had to happen. The night waking. The heavy chest. The urge to reach for the phone. The ache that made no logical sense. The 3:33 moments where something invisible seemed to say, "Stay awake, not to suffer, to see the pattern, to see the pull, to see how much of your longing was actually withdrawal, and to slowly understand. Your body may grieve what your soul already knows it must release." That sentence is tender. Your body may grieve what your soul already knows it must release. So be gentle with yourself. Do not shame the craving. Do not hate the part of you that still misses them. Do not call yourself foolish for waking up with their name in your chest. That part of you is not stupid. It is attached. It is detoxing. It is trying to survive a world without the pattern it once used to feel connected. But you are learning something now. You are learning that connection is not the same as peace. Intensity is not the same as alignment. Relief is not the same as love. And once those differences become clear, heaven can finally begin clearing space for something different. A connection that does not make your body live in emergency. A love that does not require you to keep waking up in fear, wondering where you stand. A union positioned not through obsession, but through healing. And that is where the next chapter begins. Because the union could not be positioned while you were still chasing closure from the very thing heaven was helping you release. Lesson of this chapter: your body may grieve what your soul already knows it must release. 3:33 can appear during emotional detox, when the false pull is weakening and your nervous system is learning how to live without unstable love. The ache does not mean you are going backward. Sometimes it means the wrong field is finally losing its power. Part 5: the union could not be positioned while you were still chasing closure. I wanted closure. At least. That is what I told myself. I wanted one last conversation. One honest explanation. One moment where they would finally look at me and say the thing my heart had been trying to hear for months. I did feel it. I was scared. I didn't know how to handle what this connection awakened in me. I'm sorry I made you question yourself. I used to imagine that conversation more than I want to admit. Not every day, but often enough. Especially at night. Especially after waking up at 3:33 with my chest tight and the room too quiet. There is something about the middle of the night that makes unfinished love feel louder. During the day, you can distract yourself. You can wash dishes, answer emails, scroll through things you do not care about. Pretend the silence is not still touching the back of your mind. But at night, when the house settles, when your phone is face up beside you, when there is no more noise to protect you from your own thoughts, the questions come back. Why did they leave it like that? Why did they go quiet after something so deep? Why did they make me feel seen? Then make me feel invisible? And I thought closure would fix that. I thought if I could just understand what happened, my body would finally relax. My heart would stop circling the same wound. My mind would stop replaying every little detail. The last message. The last call. The last moment their eyes looked softer than their actions. I thought closure meant peace. But sometimes, what we call closure is really one more doorway back into the attachment. That was hard for me to admit. Raw honesty. I did not only want closure. I wanted contact. I wanted a reason to hear their voice again. I wanted proof that I still mattered enough to be answered. I wanted their words to rescue me from the silence. And maybe you know that feeling. You tell yourself, I just need answers. But underneath that, there is a quieter longing. I need to know I wasn't easy to leave. I need to know they felt it too. I need to know I didn't imagine everything. I need to know my love was not wasted. That kind of needing can feel innocent, almost reasonable. After all, who does not want answers after something painful? Who does not want honesty after confusion? Who does not want a clean ending after an emotionally messy connection? But the nervous system is not always honest about what it is seeking. Sometimes it says closure, when it means regulation. Sometimes it says explanation, when it means reassurance. Sometimes it says final conversation, when it means, please come close enough one more time so I can feel chosen again. I remember one night very clearly. I had woken up again. Not exactly at 3:33 that time, but close enough that I checked the clock with that same strange feeling. The room was dark. My heart was restless. And suddenly I had this overwhelming urge to send a message. Not angry. Not desperate in the obvious way. It was carefully written in my mind. Mature. Calm. Spiritual even. Something like, I just want to understand what happened between us. It sounded reasonable. That is what made it dangerous. I picked up my phone. Opened the thread. Their name was right there. Still carrying too much emotion for such a small line of text. My thumb hovered, and I could feel my body waiting for something. Not the answer. The possibility of the answer. Even before sending it, my nervous system was already leaning forward. Hoping. Bracing. Wanting the door to crack open. That is when I realized. This was not closure. This was the wound looking for permission to stay attached. I put the phone down. Not because I felt strong. I felt shaky. Almost sick. My hands were cold. My chest felt too full. And I remember whispering into the room. If I send this, am I seeking peace? Or am I trying to reopen the door? That question stopped me. Not permanently. I wish healing were that clean. There were other nights. Other urges. Other almost messages. But that question stayed. Would closure actually heal me? Or would it give me another reason to wait? Would their explanation set me free? Or would I turn every word into a new sign? Would one more conversation bring peace? Or would it put me right back inside the timeline heaven was pulling me out of? Those questions matter, especially on a twin flame path, because soul connections can make closure feel sacred. The bond feels unfinished. The energy still lingers. Dreams happen. Numbers appear. You wake up at strange hours. You feel them without wanting to. So naturally, your heart thinks, there must be more. And maybe there is more. But more does not always mean immediate contact. More does not always mean another conversation. More does not always mean going back to the person who still has not learned how to meet you. Sometimes more means deeper healing. More truth. More separation from the pattern. More space for heaven to position what could not be positioned while you were still negotiating with the past. That is the part one resisted. I wanted heaven to position the union through reunion, through a message, through them coming back changed, through the closure conversation turning into the beginning of everything I had hoped for. But heaven often begins positioning union by removing your addiction to needing closure from the person who wounded you. Not because your pain does not deserve an answer. It does. Your confusion matters. Your heart matters. What happened to you mattered. But some people cannot give you closure without reopening the wound they created. Some people will explain just enough to keep you emotionally available. Some will apologize without changing. Some will admit they felt something, then still disappear again. Some will give you softness for one night, and confusion for another month. And your soul had already survived enough of that. I know this may be painful to hear, but not every answer is safe for the season you are in. Sometimes heaven withholds a conversation because one more emotional exchange would delay your release. One more message would restart the cycle. One more, "I miss you," would pull your nervous system back into waiting. One more almost confession would make you call the old timeline divine again. And at 3:33, when everything is quiet, when your defenses are low, when your heart is tender enough to believe anything that sounds like hope, heaven may be asking you to pause. Not forever, not with bitterness. Just pause, long enough to ask, am I seeking truth? Or am I seeking access? That question is uncomfortable. It cuts through the spiritual language. It exposes the part of you that still wants to be chosen by the person who made you feel uncertain. And there is no shame in that. Please do not shame yourself for wanting closure. Wanting answers after emotional pain is human. Wanting someone to acknowledge what they did is human. Wanting the connection to be honored instead of abandoned is human. But healing begins when you stop giving someone else's silence the power to define your worth. I thought I needed their words to move on. Later, I realized I needed to stop letting their absence narrate my identity. Their silence did not mean I was forgettable. Their inability to explain did not mean my feelings were imaginary. Their lack of closure did not mean the connection had no meaning. It meant I could not keep waiting for someone else to hand me the permission to heal. That permission had to come from inside me. Quietly, painfully, in the dark. Sometimes at 3:33, closure became less about what they said, and more about what I finally stopped doing to myself. I stopped reopening the wound for answers. I stopped rereading old messages like scripture. I stopped turning their inconsistency into a mystery I had to solve. I stopped believing peace would arrive only after they understood me. That last one was the hardest. Because when you have been unseen by someone you loved deeply, part of you becomes desperate to be understood by them specifically. Not by friends. Not by strangers. Not by yourself. Them. You want the person who hurt you to become the person who validates the hurt. But sometimes they cannot. Sometimes they are still avoiding their own reflection. Sometimes they do not have the emotional maturity to hold the truth without defending themselves. Sometimes their silence is not a puzzle. It is a limitation. And sacred union cannot be positioned while your soul is still begging limitation to become revelation. Read that slowly. Sacred union cannot be positioned while your soul is still begging limitation to become revelation. At some point, heaven begins teaching you a different kind of closure. The kind that does not require their participation. The kind that begins when you say, I may never receive the explanation I wanted, but I will not keep abandoning myself for it. The kind that says, I can honor what I felt, without staying trapped in what they refused to face. The kind that says, my heart can grieve and still move. My soul can love and still release. My body can miss the familiar and still choose peace. That is not easy. It sounds beautiful when spoken. It feels brutal when lived. It feels like deleting a paragraph with tears in your eyes. It feels like leaving the phone on the table and walking away while every part of your body wants to go back. It feels like waking up at 3:33 and choosing not to treat the number as permission to chase. Instead, you breathe. You let the ache rise. You let the room stay quiet. You let heaven meet you without needing them to interrupt the silence. That is where intuition begins to return. Not when the person explains everything. When you stop drowning out your own inner knowing with the search for their explanation. The moment you stop chasing closure from the old timeline, your spirit starts hearing the new one. Softly, not with full details, not with dates, not with certainty you can prove, but with a quiet shift in your body. A little less panic, a little more presence, a little more strength in the places that used to collapse when they went silent. And maybe that is why 333 kept appearing. Not to tell you to reach back, to teach you how to stay awake inside the urge without obeying it, to show you the difference between a sign and a trigger, to remind you that heaven can position your union without requiring you to chase the person who could not give you peace. Because the union being positioned is not built on begging. It is not built on proving. It is not built on you reopening old doors every time loneliness gets loud. It is built on alignment. And alignment begins when you stop negotiating with what keeps pulling you out of yourself. So if you have been chasing closure, if you have been waiting for one final message, one final answer, one final sign from them, be gentle with yourself. You are not weak. You are trying to make sense of something that touched your soul and then left your nervous system in pieces. But also hear this softly. You may not need their words as much as you think. You may need your own truth. You may need your own body back. You may need your own peace more than their explanation. And the night you woke up at 3:33, heaven may have been guiding you toward exactly that. Not away from love. Away from the version of love that made you chase your own closure outside yourself. And once you stop chasing answers, something changes. The noise drops. The fog thins. The inner voice becomes easier to hear. Your intuition, the one buried under longing, starts speaking again. And that is where the next chapter begins. Lesson of this chapter. Closure is not always a conversation. Sometimes closure is the moment you stop abandoning yourself for answers. 3:33 may appear when heaven is helping you pause before reopening an old wound. And when you stop chasing explanations from the past, your intuition finally has room to speak. Part 6 333 was activating your intuition. I remember waking up one night and feeling something before I understood anything. That is the strange part. There was no clear thought yet. No perfect message. No dramatic vision. Just a feeling. A pressure in my chest. A soft alertness behind my eyes. And this quiet knowing that something inside me was no longer sleeping the way it used to. I reached for my phone. Again. 3:33. The number looked almost too still on the screen, like it had been waiting there before I woke up. And for a moment, I did not think about them first. That surprised me. Usually, after waking in the middle of the night, my mind went straight to the person. Are they awake? Do they feel this? Are they missing me? Did they dream of me too? But that night felt different. My attention turned inward. Not fully, not cleanly, but enough. I remember lying there in the dark, phone resting on my chest, listening to my own breathing, and realizing I could feel things more sharply than before. Not just emotions, energy. The energy of old conversations, the weight of certain memories, the difference between longing and intuition, the difference between missing someone and being pulled back into a pattern. That distinction had not been clear before. For a long time, everything inside me felt tangled. Love, fear, desire, attachment, hope, pain, signs, dreams. memories. I could not tell where one ended and the other began. When I missed them, I called it intuition. When I felt anxious, I called it a sign. When I had a dream, I wondered if it meant they were coming back. When I saw 333, I wanted it to confirm the version of the story my heart still wanted. But intuition does not always tell you what you want. Sometimes intuition tells you what your attachment does not want to hear. That was hard. Very hard. Because when you are still grieving someone, you do not always want truth. You want comfort. You want reassurance. You want heaven to say, yes, keep waiting. Yes, they will return exactly the way you imagined. Yes, the silence is just a test. But intuition is not fantasy. It is quieter, cleaner, less frantic. It does not beg. It does not panic. It does not need to convince you. It simply knows. And that night, something in me began to know. Not everything. Not the future. Not the full shape of the union. But I knew I could not keep confusing emotional pain with divine instruction. That realization landed softly. But it changed something. I had spent so long trying to decode the connection that I had stopped listening to myself. Every sign became about them. Every dream became about them. Every number became about whether they missed me or whether they were coming back. Even my spiritual life had started orbiting the person. And honestly, that is easy to do on a twin flame path. When the connection feels deep enough. When the silence feels charged enough. When the synchronicities keep appearing. You can start believing every spiritual message is about reunion. But sometimes heaven wakes you up at 3:33, not to point you back to the other person, but to return you to your own inner voice. The voice you buried under longing. The voice you silenced every time you ignored discomfort. The voice that whispered, "This hurts more than it heals." The voice that said, "You are waiting in a place that keeps making you smaller." The voice that knew the difference between love and emotional survival long before your heart was ready to admit it. That voice is intuition. And heartbreak has a strange way of uncovering it. Not immediately. At first, heartbreak makes everything louder. The anxiety, the memories, the questions, the desire to reach out, the ache of being unseen. But after the first storm, after the silence stretches, after the body grows tired of chasing relief, something begins to clear. You start feeling what belongs to you again. You start noticing what drains you. You start sensing when a thought comes from fear, and when it comes from inner knowing. That is a major shift. Not everyone reaches it. Many people stay trapped in the loop. They keep checking, keep chasing, keep looking for signs that confirm the attachment. Keep asking the universe about someone who has already shown them emotional inconsistency. But when 3:33 starts appearing during your healing, especially after the closure chase begins weakening, it can mark the return of discernment. Not just sensitivity. Discernment. There is a difference. Sensitivity feels everything. Discernment understands what the feeling means. Before awakening, you may have felt every shift in their energy but still ignored what it told you. You felt the distance. You felt the inconsistency. You felt the emotional absence underneath their words. But you argued with yourself. You said you were overthinking. You said they were busy. You said the connection was complicated. You said love required patience. Now, your intuition is returning with a sharper edge. Not cruel, clear. You begin sensing things faster. Certain people feel heavy before they even explain themselves. Certain conversations leave a strange residue in your body. Certain messages feel wrong even if the words are polite. Certain rooms make your energy close. Certain memories no longer feel romantic. They feel revealing. That is intuition waking up. I remember after one of those 3:33 nights, I had a dream. It was not dramatic. No angels. No glowing doorway. Just me standing in a house I did not recognize, looking for a room that was supposed to be mine. Every door I opened belonged to someone else. Their clothes, their furniture, their noise, their life. And I kept walking through hallways feeling increasingly anxious. Then suddenly I found a small empty room with sunlight coming through one window. No furniture, no decorations, just space. And in the dream I started crying. Not because I was sad, because it was mine. When I woke up, the emotion stayed in my body. You know those dreams that do not disappear when you open your eyes? They linger. They sit in your chest. They make the morning feel different. I checked the time, 3:33, and I knew, not in words yet, that the dream was not about them. It was about me, about searching through other people's emotional rooms for a place to belong, about finally finding space that was not shaped around anyone else's needs. That is how intuition speaks sometimes. Not always with sentences. Sometimes through images, dreams, body sensations, repeating symbols, the sudden sense that something is finished, the sudden calm after crying, the sudden heaviness around a person you used to romanticize, the sudden peace when you choose not to chase. And once intuition returns, you may start questioning things you used to accept. Why did I feel anxious every time I asked for clarity? Why did I keep calling mixed signals mysterious? Why did I trust their potential more than my own discomfort? Why did I need them to validate what my body already knew? These questions do not come from bitterness. They come from awakening. The part of you that once begged for signs starts becoming the part of you that can interpret them with honesty. That matters, because not every sign is permission to return. Some signs are warnings. Some signs are confirmations that you are being redirected. Some signs appear when your spirit is ready to stop feeding the old emotional timeline. 3:33 may have appeared at night because your intuition needed a quiet enough room to speak. During the day, your mind was too busy. Your defenses were too active. You had too many distractions, too many explanations, too many ways to avoid the feeling. But at 3:33, the world is quiet. Your ego is tired. Your body is honest. Your spirit has space. And in that space, heaven can reach the part of you that still knows how to listen. Not the part performing healing. Not the part trying to sound detached. The real part. The tender part. The part that still misses them, but also knows something has changed. The part that whispers, I do not want to keep abandoning myself. That whisper is sacred. It may be small. It may not feel powerful yet. But it is the beginning of a new inner authority. A new relationship with your own knowing. A new ability to feel the difference between divine alignment and emotional addiction. This is where the twin flame journey becomes less about the other person, and more about the soul being prepared to recognize truth. Not just chemistry, truth. Because a mirror-soul connection cannot be positioned in a field where you keep mistrusting your own inner voice. If you ignore your intuition, you will keep choosing familiar pain. If you dismiss your body, you will keep calling discomfort a spiritual test. If you chase closure, you will keep delaying the quiet wisdom trying to rise inside you. So heaven wakes the intuition. Softly at first, then repeatedly, through 3:33, through dreams, through names appearing, through sudden emotional clarity, through the feeling that certain doors are no longer yours, through the calm that arrives when you finally stop reaching backward. And yes, that can feel lonely. Intuition often separates you before it explains you. It may lead you away from people who still look familiar. It may make old places feel strange. It may make you quieter, more observant, less available for drama, less impressed by intensity. People may not understand the shift. They may say you are distant, different, too sensitive. But you are not becoming less loving. You are becoming less willing to betray your own knowing. That is different. Very different. I used to think intuition would feel certain and beautiful all the time. It does not. Sometimes intuition feels like grief. Sometimes it is the quiet knowing that something you love is not good for your spirit anymore. Sometimes it is peace that arrives before your heart is ready to stop wanting the old story. Sometimes it is waking up at 3:33 and realizing. The sign is not asking you to chase. It is asking you to listen. To yourself. To God. To the part of your soul that has been waiting beneath the noise. And once that part starts speaking, the next layer becomes unavoidable. You begin recognizing who cannot come with you. Not out of judgment. Out of clarity. Because intuition does not only reveal the path forward. It also reveals the energies that can no longer enter your field. And that is where the next chapter begins. Lesson of this chapter. 3:33 may appear when your intuition is being activated. Not to make you obsess over signs, but to help you hear the inner voice that heartbreak buried under longing. Intuition often returns after silence removes the noise you mistook for love. And once that voice becomes clearer, you begin recognizing who and what cannot follow you into the union heaven is positioning. Part 7. People started falling away because your field was being cleared. I used to think people leaving meant I had done something wrong. That was always my first instinct. Not anger. Not confidence. Guilt. A quiet little panic in the body that whispered, "What did I do? Was I too much? Did I change? Did I make them uncomfortable?" And after the separation, after the nights of waking at 3:33, after my intuition started becoming louder than my attachment, people did start falling away. Not all at once. Not dramatically. No big betrayal scene. No obvious villain. Just distance. Fewer messages. Shorter conversations. Delayed replies from people who once felt close. Invitations I suddenly did not have the energy to accept. Rooms that used to feel familiar now feeling strangely heavy. And at first, I blamed myself. I thought healing had made me difficult. Too quiet. Too sensitive. Too intense. Too different. I remember sitting with someone I used to feel safe with, and while they were talking, I felt my whole body pull inward. They had not said anything cruel. Nothing obvious happened. But their energy felt loud. Not loud in volume. Loud in the nervous system. Like I could feel the emotional demand underneath their words. They wanted the old version of me. The one who would listen without limits. The one who would absorb without complaint. The one who could be available even while breaking. And I sat there nodding, trying to be present. But inside, something in me whispered, "I can't do this anymore." That whisper scared me. Because part of me still wanted to be who everyone expected. The easy one. The understanding one. The emotionally generous one. The person who could hold everyone's pain and still apologize for needing space. But after 3:33 started appearing. After the silence began activating something in me. I could not pretend the same way. My body would not let me. I would feel drained faster. My chest would tighten in certain conversations. My eyes would feel tired after being around certain people. I would come home from spending time with someone and feel like I needed to sit in silence for an hour just to find myself again. Have you ever noticed that? How certain people do not do anything wrong, but your spirit still feels exhausted around them? How a conversation can seem normal on the surface, but afterward your body feels like it has been carrying weight. How some people only feel close to you when you are abandoning yourself. That realization is uncomfortable. It makes you question everything. Were they really connected to your soul? Or were they connected to your availability? Did they love you? Or did they love how little you required? Did they miss you? Or did they miss the version of you that made their life easier? Those questions hurt, especially when the people involved are not strangers. Sometimes they are friends, family, people who knew you before the awakening, people who saw you during earlier chapters, people you laughed with, people you cried around, people who once felt like home. And that is where the grief becomes complicated. Because not everyone who falls away is evil. Not everyone who leaves is toxic. Not every fading relationship needs to be turned into a spiritual war. Sometimes the connection simply cannot survive the version of you who no longer self-abandons. That is a painful kind of truth. Quiet, mature, lonely. I remember after one of those 3:33 nights, I woke up feeling strangely clear. Not happy, not light, clear. There had been a dream I could barely remember, but the feeling of it stayed in my body. I was standing outside a house with many lights on inside. I could hear people talking, laughing, calling my name, but I could not get the door open. And in the dream, I kept trying different keys. None of them worked. When I woke up, my chest felt heavy, but not panicked. I checked the time, 3:33, and the strangest thought came to me. Some doors are not locked against you. They are locked because you no longer belong inside. That thought stayed with me all morning. I did not like it. Honestly, I resisted it, because belonging is hard to release. Even when it hurts. Even when the room no longer fits. Even when your spirit has already outgrown the emotional role you played there. You still remember the warmth, the history, the shared stories, the version of yourself that used to feel accepted in those spaces. So when your field starts being cleared, it can feel like rejection. People stop understanding you. They say things like, "You've changed. You're distant now. You're not like you used to be." And sometimes they say it softly. Sometimes they say it with concern. Sometimes they say it with accusation hidden underneath. And the old version of you might have rushed to explain. "I'm sorry. I've just been going through a lot. I didn't mean to pull away. I'm still here." You might have over-explained your silence, justified your boundaries, made your healing sound less threatening. But something is different now. You pause. You breathe. You notice the old urge to apologize for needing peace. And for the first time, you do not obey it immediately. That is not coldness. That is your field changing. Your energy is no longer automatically opening for every familiar demand. Your spirit is becoming more selective with access. And that selectiveness may feel strange at first, especially if you were raised to believe love means constant availability. Especially if your identity was built around being needed. Especially if people praised you for being strong when you were actually exhausted. There is a version of kindness that is really self-erasure. There is a version of loyalty that is really fear. There is a version of being understanding that quietly teaches people they can take from you without checking whether you are empty. And when heaven starts positioning your union, that pattern cannot remain untouched. Your future connection cannot be built in a field where everyone has access to your energy. Sacred union requires a cleared field. Not a perfect life. Not a life without people. But a field where your spirit is not constantly being pulled in 10 different emotional directions. A field where your intuition can speak without being drowned out by obligation. A field where your nervous system can finally understand what peace feels like. That is why some people started falling away. Not as punishment, as clearing. The field around you is being made honest. And honesty reveals who can meet you without needing you to shrink. I remember one friend who slowly faded during that season. There was no fight, no closure conversation, no dramatic ending. Just this gradual awareness that every time we spoke, I had to become a smaller version of myself. Less honest, less spiritual, less tender, less affected by what I was going through. They were comfortable with me when I was useful, funny, supportive, available. But when I became quieter, when I stopped performing okay, when I no longer had the energy to turn my pain into something easy for others to digest, the connection weakened. At first, I was hurt. Then I was angry. Then I was sad. Then one day, I felt calm. Not because I stopped caring, because I finally understood. Some people are not leaving your life. They are leaving the role you no longer play. That sentence can change how you see everything. They may not know how to love you without your overgiving. They may not know how to connect with you without your emotional labor. They may not know where to stand when you stop centering their comfort. And if the relationship only survives when you abandon yourself, then the clearing is mercy. Painful mercy. But mercy. 333 may appear during this stage because heaven is showing you something deeper than signs. Your environment is shifting. Your field is being purified. Your intuition is no longer only waking up around romance. It is waking up around everything. Friendships, family patterns, workspaces, old habits, places you used to go, conversations you used to tolerate, even the music you listened to when you were attached to the wrong timeline. Suddenly, everything has energy. Everything has a texture. Everything either pulls you closer to yourself or farther away. And once you can feel that, your life cannot stay the same. You may start craving more silence. Not because you are antisocial, because your nervous system is tired of performing. You may stop answering immediately, not because you are cruel, because urgency no longer feels like love. You may need more time alone. Not because you are broken, because your spirit is rebuilding its own center, and the people who truly love your soul, not your usefulness, will adjust. They may not understand everything. They may not speak your spiritual language. They may not know what 333 means to you, but they will respect your becoming. They will not punish your peace. They will not make your healing about their rejection. They will not demand the wounded version of you back just because she was easier to access. That is how you begin recognizing who belongs in the new field. Not through dramatic tests, through subtle responses. Who becomes gentle when you are honest? Who becomes defensive? Who gives you space without withdrawing love? Who makes your boundaries feel safe? Who makes your boundaries feel like a crime? Fais attention. Not with paranoia, with discernment. Heaven may be clearing your field by letting people reveal their relationship to your growth. Some will celebrate it, some will tolerate it, some will resist it, some will disappear. Let the revelation happen. I know that sounds easier than it feels. It can be deeply lonely. There may be days when your phone feels too quiet, when you miss the old noise, when you wonder if you pushed everyone away, when you start questioning whether peace is worth the isolation it sometimes requires. I have had those days. Days where I missed people who were not good for my spirit. Days where I wanted to go back to familiar dynamics just so I would not feel the ache of becoming. Days where I thought, maybe I am the problem. Then I would sit quietly, sometimes after another 333 awakening, and feel the difference in my body. The grief was real, but so was the relief. That contradiction told me everything. If losing access to someone hurts your heart but relaxes your nervous system, listen. The heart remembers attachment. The body remembers impact. Both are telling part of the story. And during this field clearing season, You are learning how to honor both without betraying yourself. You can miss someone and still know their energy was heavy. You can love family and still need distance. You can outgrow a friendship without turning the person into an enemy. You can grieve a room and still not return to it. That is emotional maturity. That is spiritual adulthood. Not everyone has to be villainized for you to choose peace. Not every exit needs anger. Sometimes the cleanest departure is simply no longer fitting. And the night you woke up at 3:33, maybe heaven was not only positioning romantic union. Maybe heaven was positioning the entire field around it. Removing what would interrupt it. Loosening what would pull you backward. Quieting the voices that kept teaching you to doubt your own intuition. Clearing emotional clutter so your soul could recognize the real thing when it arrives. Because your mirror soul cannot meet you fully in a field crowded with old contracts. Old guilt. Old roles. Old obligations. Old versions of love that reward your disappearance. The union being positioned requires space. And space often comes through loss first. That is why your life may have felt quieter after 3:33 started appearing. Not empty. Cleared. There is a difference. Empty means nothing is happening. Cleared means something is being prepared. And maybe you are standing in that strange middle now. A quieter phone. Fewer people around. Less desire to explain yourself. More sensitivity to energy. More peace. But also more grief. You are not losing everyone. You are learning who can remain when you stop abandoning yourself. You are learning who can love you in the field where your soul finally tells the truth. And once that field clears, something new begins to move. A pull. Not toward the past. Not toward the people fading away. Toward the one your healing has been preparing you to recognize. That is where the next chapter begins. Lesson of this chapter. Not everyone falls away because they are bad. Some people fall away because they belong to the version of you heaven is no longer asking you to be. 3:33 may appear during a field clearing season when old roles, old dynamics, and old emotional contracts begin losing access to your spirit. And once the field becomes quiet enough, your soul begins feeling the pull toward the union being positioned. Part 8. Your mirror soul was being positioned through your healing. I used to think union meant finding them, seeing them, recognizing them, having that one impossible moment where everything inside me went still and some hidden part of my soul whispered, "There you are." I thought twin flame union would arrive like an event, a meeting, a message, a return, a door opening, something outside of me finally changing after so much silence. But the longer I sat with the pain, the more I realized something I did not want to realize at first. Union was not only about finding the right person. It was about becoming someone who could recognize the right connection without losing herself inside it. That realization felt less romantic, but much more real. Because before healing, I would have called almost anything destiny if it touched the wound deeply enough. A strong pull. A strange dream. A look that lasted too long. A conversation that felt different. A person who came close, then disappeared, then came close again. Back then, I thought the emotional intensity meant I was close to sacred love. Now I understand. Sometimes intensity only means an old wound has been activated. And that is exactly why heaven had to position the union through healing first. Not through chasing. Not through obsession. Not through forcing the other person to wake up on your timeline. Through you. Your body. Your boundaries. Your discernment. Your ability to feel love without handing over your entire nervous system. I remember one night after waking up at 3:33, I did something that would have seemed small to anyone else. I did not check their profile. That was it. Nothing dramatic. No grand spiritual breakthrough. No sudden confidence. Just a quiet moment in the dark where my hand reached for the phone. And I paused. I could feel the urge. It was not gone. It was sitting right there in my body. That old pull. That old ache. That old need to know if they were okay, if they were thinking of me, if their life had moved on without me. My thumb hovered over the screen. And for once, I did not obey the ache immediately. I put the phone down. Then I cried. Not because I felt powerful, because not checking felt like losing another piece of the connection. That is how healing can feel in the beginning. Even healthy choices can hurt. Choosing yourself can feel like abandonment when you are used to abandoning yourself for connection. Silence can feel like rejection when you are used to chasing reassurance. Peace can feel empty when your body has been trained by emotional chaos. But that night something shifted. Not enough for me to feel healed. Enough for me to notice. For the first time, the sign did not send me back into the old loop. 3:33 did not become permission to chase. It became a pause. A small holy interruption. A moment where heaven seemed to whisper. Stay here. Not with them. Not in the fantasy. Not in the old timeline. Here. With yourself. With the ache. With the part of you that keeps reaching outward because it does not yet trust it can survive inward. That is where union positioning begins. In these tiny moments no one sees. The moment you do not send the message. The moment you let the dream remain a dream instead of turning it into a reason to reopen the wound. The moment you feel their energy and choose not to abandon your own. The moment you admit, I still love them, but I cannot keep disappearing for this. That is not weakness. That is preparation. Your mirror soul cannot meet the version of you who still believes love requires self-erasure. Not fully. Not safely. Not without repeating the same wound in a different body. Sacred union requires a different field. A field where you can feel deeply and still stay centered. A field where longing does not make decisions for you. A field where your intuition is louder than your fear of being alone. A field where peace no longer feels suspicious. And heaven positions that field through healing. Slowly. Uncomfortably. Honestly. I used to resist that. I wanted the other person to change first. I wanted them to wake up. To feel the same urgency. To understand the connection. To confess what they had been avoiding. To finally become emotionally available enough that I could stop feeling crazy. But after enough nights of silence, after enough 3:33 awakenings, after enough emotional withdrawal, I realized how much power I had placed in their awakening. I was waiting for them to become clear, so I could feel safe. I was waiting for them to choose me, so I could feel chosen. I was waiting for them to explain the connection, so I could trust what I had felt. That is a heavy thing to admit, but it is also freeing. Because if your peace depends entirely on someone else's emotional readiness, you are not in union. You are in suspension. You are hanging between who you were and who you are becoming, waiting for another person to decide when your life can begin again. Heaven does not position sacred union through suspension. It positions it through return. Your return to yourself. Your return to your body. Your return to your own inner authority. Your return to the part of you that existed before you made someone else's inconsistency the center of your world. And yes, that return can be lonely. There may be nights when 3:33 appears and you feel more alone than guided. There may be mornings when healing feels like loss. There may be moments when choosing peace feels less exciting than the old intensity. That does not mean you are going backward. It means your system is learning a new language. The language of safety. The language of steadiness. The language of love that does not require panic to feel real. Would you have recognized steady love before chaos stopped feeling sacred? Be honest with yourself. Would you have trusted someone who showed up calmly? If your body still believed love had to arrive with anxiety? Would you have felt drawn to emotional consistency? Or would part of you have mistaken it for boredom? Would you have allowed someone to meet you gently? Or would you have chased the person who kept leaving because the chase felt more familiar? These questions are uncomfortable, but they matter, because your mirror soul is not simply the person who activates your deepest feelings. Your mirror soul reflects the version of you that is ready to stop confusing activation with alignment. They reflect your growth, your self-honesty, your ability to stay present, your courage to choose what nourishes instead of what triggers. That does not mean the connection will be perfect. Sacred love is not a fantasy without human complexity. There will still be fear sometimes, still vulnerability, still moments where old wounds try to speak. But the difference is this: you will not have to disappear to keep it alive. You will not have to decode basic care. You will not have to starve emotionally between moments of warmth. You will not have to trade your peace for proximity. And the only way to recognize that kind of connection is to heal enough to stop worshiping the kind that costs you yourself. I remember the first time peace felt attractive to me. Not dramatic peace, not some mystical experience, just a quiet evening alone. I had made tea. The room was dim. No message had come. No one had rescued me from the ache. And yet, for a few minutes, my body was calm. I was not waiting. Not fully. Not desperately. I was just sitting there, holding the warm cup between my hands, listening to the quiet. And I remember thinking, this is what I kept asking them to give me. Peace. But I was beginning to find it without them. That thought made me cry. Not sad tears exactly. Tender ones. Because part of me understood that if I could begin finding peace inside myself, I would no longer be so easily pulled into anything that only offered temporary relief. That is how heaven protects union. By teaching you the difference before the person arrives. By letting you taste peace in your own body. By allowing the wrong pull to become exhausting enough that the right field can finally feel recognizable. By letting you become someone who does not confuse emotional hunger with soul connection. 333 may appear during that transformation because heaven is marking the hidden work. The work no one sees. The emotional detox. The choosing yourself. The silence you survived. The old timeline you stopped feeding. The profile you did not check. The message you deleted. The boundary you finally honored. The night you woke up wanting them, and still stayed with yourself. Those moments position union more than you realize. Not because they make you perfect. They make you available. Available to truth. Available to peace. Available to love that does not need to hurt you first to feel deep. And maybe this is the part you are living now. You still feel the past sometimes. You still have dreams. You still wake up at strange hours. You still wonder what heaven is doing. But something in your energy is changing. You are less willing to chase. Less willing to betray your body. Less willing to call anxiety a sign. Less willing to mistake longing for instruction. That shift is sacred. Quiet, but sacred. Your union is not being positioned only in the stars. It is being positioned in your nervous system, in your choices, in your self-respect, in your ability to feel a pull without becoming enslaved by it, in your willingness to let heaven remove what your heart was still trying to explain. And when the mirror soul arrives, or returns in a different frequency, you will not meet them from the same wounded place. You will not meet them as someone begging to be chosen. You will meet them as someone who has already chosen not to abandon herself. That changes everything, because sacred union is not two incomplete people trying to use each other as medicine. It is two souls recognizing each other from a place where love can expand without becoming survival. That is the union heaven is positioning. Not the fantasy that keeps you waiting. The alignment that lets you stay whole when love finally stands in front of you. And once that alignment begins, the signs change. They become softer, less frantic, less tied to obsession, more connected to peace. That is where the next chapter begins. Lesson of this chapter: union is not only about two people finding each other. It is about becoming aligned enough not to lose yourself when love arrives. 333 may appear while heaven is positioning your mirror soul through your healing, your boundaries, and your return to inner peace. And once that alignment begins, the signs start feeling less like obsession and more like quiet confirmation. Part 9: Signs your union is already being positioned. The signs became softer after I stopped begging for them. That surprised me. For a long time, I thought a sign had to shock me. It had to be loud, obvious, almost impossible to deny. A number appearing at the perfect moment. A dream that felt too real. Their name showing up somewhere random. A song playing when I was already emotional. Something dramatic enough to make me feel like heaven was saying, "See, you are not crazy." But after the deepest part of the separation, after the closure chase started losing power, after 333 stopped feeling like permission to reach backward, the signs changed. They became quieter, less frantic, less attached to obsession, more connected to peace. And I did not know what to do with that at first. Because when your nervous system has been trained by emotional chaos, calm confirmation can feel almost disappointing. You expect the sign to come with intensity. A rush, a jolt, a spiritual high. But sometimes the strongest sign is not the one that makes your heart race. Sometimes the strongest sign is the one that helps your body relax. I remember one morning after waking at 3:33 the night before. I expected to feel anxious. That had become the pattern. Wake up. See the number. Think of them. Spiral. Search. Decode. Try to figure out what it meant. But that morning felt different. The room was soft with early light. My phone was on the nightstand. No message. No dramatic revelation. No proof. And somehow, I did not feel the same panic. There was still sadness. A little tenderness in the chest. The kind that lingers after loving someone deeply. But underneath it, there was space. I made coffee. I remember the sound of the spoon against the mug. Small. Ordinary. Almost painfully normal. And while standing there, I had this quiet thought. I do not need to chase the sign today. That was new. For months, every sign had become something I tried to use. Used to predict. Used to comfort. Used to confirm. Used to keep the emotional story alive. But that morning, the sign did not feel like a puzzle. It felt like a presence. Not pushing me. Not demanding anything. Just reminding me that I was still being guided without needing to control the outcome. That is one of the first signs your union is already being positioned. You stop needing every synchronicity to mean immediate contact. You stop turning every number into a reason to check their profile. You stop using signs as emotional painkillers. They become less about obsession and more about alignment. That shift is subtle, but powerful, because when heaven is positioning union, your spirit becomes less addicted to proof. You still notice signs. 333, 1111, repeated names, dreams, strange timing, songs that arrive too perfectly. But they do not always throw you back into panic anymore. Sometimes they bring you inward. They make you pause, breathe, ask a better question. Not, Are they coming back? But what is my soul being prepared to receive? That question changes the field. It moves you from waiting into awareness, from chasing into becoming, from obsession into positioning. And maybe you have noticed this already. Maybe lately the signs have felt different. Not as sharp, not as desperate, more like quiet taps on the shoulder. You see 333, and instead of instantly spiraling, something in you whispers, "Stay present." You see 1111, and instead of imagining a reunion scene, you feel a strange calm. You hear their name somewhere, and it still touches your heart. But it does not steal the whole day. That matters. A lot. It means the old pull is weakening. It means your nervous system is learning that signs do not have to drag you backward. It means heaven can speak without your wound taking over the interpretation. That is alignment. Not perfection. Not total detachment. Alignment. You may still miss them sometimes. You may still wonder. You may still have dreams that leave your chest heavy in the morning. But something in you is no longer as willing to abandon yourself for the meaning. That is one of the deepest signs. You feel the sign, without losing your center. Another sign your union is being positioned is that your past starts feeling farther away emotionally. Not erased, not meaningless, just farther. You can remember it without becoming it again. You can think of them without your entire body collapsing. You can feel a memory rise, and let it pass through instead of chasing it into a fantasy. That does not happen overnight. It comes in small moments. You hear a song and breathe through it. You pass a place connected to them and keep walking. You see something that reminds you of the connection. And instead of instantly reaching for your phone, you place your hand on your chest and stay with yourself. Those are not small things. Those are signs your energy is returning. And when your energy returns, your union can be positioned differently. Not around lack, not around fear, not around trying to be chosen, around wholeness, around readiness, around the version of you that has learned the difference between emotional hunger and sacred recognition. Another sign is your definition of love begins changing. This one can feel quiet too, almost like a private rearrangement inside your chest. You start craving peace more than intensity. That would have sounded boring to the wounded version of you. Peace. After a soul connection? After a bond that felt electric? After someone awakened every hidden place inside you? But after enough emotional survival, peace becomes sacred. You no longer want to decode someone's silence. You no longer want to beg for basic consistency. You no longer want to feel chosen for one moment and abandon the next. You want steadiness, presence, honesty, a connection where your body does not have to live in emergency. That desire is not weakness. It is evidence. Evidence that the union being positioned is not meant to repeat the old wound. Heaven does not prepare you for sacred union by making you more addicted to chaos. It prepares you by making chaos less attractive. Pay attention to that. If mixed signals no longer excite you the same way, if emotionally unavailable people feel less mysterious and more exhausting, if you are beginning to value calmness without calling it boring, your field is changing, and a changed field attracts differently. It recognizes differently. It chooses differently. Another sign is that your intuition becomes simpler. Before, your mind may have been loud, always analyzing every dream, every text, every silence, every sign. You wanted certainty so badly that your thoughts became exhausting. But as union positioning begins, intuition often becomes less frantic. It does not shout. It does not argue. It does not need 10 confirmations. It feels like a quiet knowing beneath the noise. Something like, I am not supposed to go back to that version of myself. Or, This door does not feel like mine anymore. Or, I can love them and still move forward. Or even, something is coming, but I do not have to chase it. That last one is important. A true positioning season often brings a strange sense that something is coming, without the desperation to force it. You may not know who. You may not know when. You may not know whether it is a return, a new encounter, a deeper awakening, or an unexpected shift in your path. But your soul feels movement. Not panic. Movement. There is a difference. Panic says, do something now or you will lose it. Movement says, stay aligned. Something is being arranged. Panic makes you reach backward. Movement helps you prepare. Panic needs proof. Movement carries quiet trust. And trust may be returning to you slowly. Not trust in the old fantasy. Trust in heaven. Trust in your body. Trust in your ability to survive silence. Trust in your own discernment. Trust that if something is truly meant to meet you, it will not require you to become unrecognizable to receive it. That kind of trust is a sign. A very deep one. Another sign is that certain temptations start losing power. The profile you used to check feels less magnetic. The message you almost sent stays unsent. The old conversation thread does not control you as easily. You may still feel the urge sometimes. Of course, you are human, but the urge no longer becomes a command. There is a pause now, a space between feeling and action. And in that space, your future is being protected. I remember the first time I felt that pause clearly. I was sitting on the floor beside my bed, folding laundry badly. You know the kind of folding where you are technically doing something, but your mind is somewhere else. A memory came up suddenly. One of the good ones. Their face. Their voice. A moment where everything had felt strangely destined. My whole body softened for a second. Then the old urge came. Check. Just check. See if anything changed. But instead of moving immediately, I just sat there with a towel in my lap. I let the urge exist. I let the memory hurt. I let myself miss them without turning the missing into action. And after a few minutes, it passed. Not completely, but enough. I remember thinking, this is new. That pause was a sign. Not glamorous. No one would make a movie scene out of it. But spiritually it mattered. Because the version of me who could pause was not the same version who used to chase relief. That is how you know positioning is happening. You are not only seeing signs around you. You are becoming a sign to yourself. Your reactions are changing. Your choices are changing. Your body is learning peace. Your spirit is no longer as easily pulled into old emotional timelines. Another sign is that loneliness starts changing texture. In the beginning, loneliness feels like punishment. Like absence. Like proof that nothing is happening. But during positioning, solitude begins feeling different. Still tender. Still human. But less empty. You may find yourself sitting alone and not immediately reaching for distraction. You may enjoy quiet for a few minutes. You may start craving space after being around heavy energy. You may feel more protected in solitude than drained in shallow connection. That shift can feel strange, especially if you once feared being alone. But solitude becomes the room where heaven can rearrange your field without interference. The room where your intuition sharpens. The room where your nervous system relearns safety. The room where your soul stops confusing company with connection. And when union is being positioned, this matters deeply. Because sacred love cannot meet you clearly while you are still terrified of being alone. Not because you need to become perfectly independent, but because the fear of loneliness can make almost anything look like destiny. Once solitude becomes less threatening, your discernment strengthens. You stop choosing from panic. You stop accepting less just to avoid an empty night. You stop calling emotional availability too much to ask. You become harder to mislead. Softer somehow, but harder to access through your wounds. That is a powerful sign. Another sign is that your prayers change. This one may be the most revealing. At first, your prayers may have sounded like longing. Bring them back. Make them understand. Show me if they are the one. Tell me what this means. Then slowly, without forcing it, the prayer shifts. Help me release what is not aligned. Help me trust what I feel. Help me stop abandoning myself. Prepare me for what is real. Make me ready for love that does not cost my peace. That change is not small. It means your soul is no longer only seeking reunion. It is seeking alignment. And heaven can work with alignment. Because alignment does not demand that love arrive through a specific person, in a specific way, on a specific timeline, just to soothe an old wound. Alignment says, I want what is sacred, even if it looks different than what my pain expected. That prayer takes courage. It is one thing to ask for the person. It is another to ask for the path, because the path may remove what the attachment still wants. The path may lead you through silence, through clearing, through becoming, through recognizing that union is not positioned by obsession, but by readiness. And readiness has signs. Less panic, more peace, less chasing, more listening, less attachment to proof, more trust in timing, less willingness to shrink, more devotion to truth, less attraction to emotional chaos, more capacity to receive steady love. These are the signs people often overlook because they are waiting for fireworks. But heaven often positions union through quiet internal evidence first. A calm you did not have before. A boundary you finally honor. A night where you wake at 3:33 and do not spiral. A dream that leaves you reflective instead of desperate. A memory that no longer owns your whole body. A feeling that your life is becoming quieter. But not empty. Prepared. Cleared. Held. And maybe that is happening to you right now. Maybe the strongest sign is not that they texted. Not that the dream happened. Not that the number appeared again. Maybe the strongest sign is that you are becoming less available to anything that makes you abandon yourself. Maybe the union is being positioned through your refusal to repeat the old pattern. Maybe heaven is preparing the meeting by preparing the one who will walk into it differently. You. Not the chasing version. Not the collapsed version. Not the version who needed suffering to prove love was real. The steadier version. The quieter version. The version who can feel deeply and still stay present. The version who can recognize a soul connection without handing over her entire peace. That is what 3:33 may have been marking all along. A positioning that begins inside the hidden places. The places no one sees. The choices no one applauds. The nights you survive without reopening the wound. The mornings you wake up and choose your own life again. And once you understand the signs this way, the final message becomes much clearer. 3:33 was never random. It may have been heaven moving you into place before your life had the proof. Lesson of this chapter. When union is being positioned, the signs become less about obsession and more about inner steadiness. You may still see 3:33, 11:11, dreams, names, songs, and synchronicities. But the deepest sign is how your spirit responds. Less panic, more peace, less chasing, more trust. And when your soul becomes available to peace, heaven can position the union without your fear getting in the way. Part 10 3:33 was heaven moving you into place. If you are still here, part of you already knows that night was not random. Not completely. Not after everything you felt. Not after waking up with your chest heavy. your throat dry, your hand reaching for the phone before your mind even understood why. Not after seeing 333 glowing in the dark. Right when your heart was too tired to keep pretending. There are moments that look ordinary from the outside. A person wakes up, checks the time, goes back to sleep. That is all anyone else would see. But you know there was more inside that moment. You know the room felt different. You know the silence had weight. You know your body reacted before your thoughts caught up. You know something in you paused. Not from fear exactly. From recognition. Like your soul heard something your ears could not. I remember the first time I stopped fighting that feeling. For a long time, I tried to explain it away. Stress, grief, poor sleep, overthinking, the body processing heartbreak. And yes, some of that was true. I was grieving. I was exhausted. My nervous system was still trying to understand how someone could feel so spiritually close and still become emotionally unreachable. But there was another layer too. Something quieter. Something I could not prove to anyone. Something I could only feel. The nights I woke up at 3:33 were not random interruptions. They were moments of positioning. Not always comfortable. Not always clear. But real. Heaven was moving something. Not necessarily outside first. Inside. Inside my perception. Inside my attachment. Inside the field I had built around waiting. Inside the part of me that kept wanting union, while still being magnetized to pain. That is the part many people miss. We think heaven positions union by bringing the person closer immediately. A message, a return, a sudden confession, a dramatic sign that says, "This is it." But sometimes heaven positions union by first pulling you away from everything that would make you lose yourself if love arrived too soon. The wrong timeline, the false pull, the closure chase, the emotional dependency, the friendships that only survived when you abandoned yourself, the old identity that thought love had to feel like anxiety to be meaningful. All of it had to be touched. All of it had to be revealed. All of it had to loosen. So when you woke up at 3:33, maybe heaven was not simply saying, "Someone is coming." Maybe heaven was saying, "You're being moved into place." Moved out of survival. Moved out of emotional chaos. Moved out of waiting rooms disguised as destiny. Moved out of relationships where your nervous system never fully rested. Moved toward the version of you that could finally recognize sacred love without confusing it with obsession. That is positioning. Quiet. Painful. Holy in a way that does not always feel beautiful while it is happening. And I know, part of you may still want the sign to mean one specific thing. You may want 3:33 to mean they miss you. They are thinking about you. They are about to return. They finally understand. They are waking up too. I understand that desire. I have lived inside that desire. I have stared at the ceiling in the middle of the night, wanting heaven to give me a clear answer. One clean sign. One undeniable confirmation that the person I loved was still connected to me. But over time, I learned something gentler and harder. A sign can be real, and still not mean what your wound wants it to mean. A sign can confirm your awakening, without confirming your attachment. A sign can tell you heaven is near, without telling you to run back into the old pattern. A sign can carry love, and still lead you away from what was hurting you. That is maturity on the spiritual path. Not using every sign to feed the ache. Learning to ask, what is this awakening in me? Not only, what does this mean about them? Because the night you woke up at 3:33 may have been less about their return, and more about your return. Your return to intuition. Your return to your body. Your return to peace. Your return to the part of you that existed before you made someone else's emotional availability the center of your world. And maybe that is why the sign came at night. When you were not performing. When nobody needed anything from you. When your defenses were too tired to create a story. When your body was finally honest. Night has a way of removing the mask. You can be strong all day. You can be productive. You can answer people. You can smile. You can tell yourself you are fine. But at 3:33, in a dark room, with no one watching, your soul tells the truth. I am tired. I still miss them. I do not understand. I want love, but I do not want to lose myself again. I want union, but I want peace too. That last sentence matters. I want union, but I want peace too. That is where the path changes. Because before awakening, you may have wanted union at any cost. Even if it meant waiting forever. Even if it meant decoding silence. Even if it meant accepting inconsistency. Even if it meant shrinking your needs until they became small enough not to scare someone away. But now, something in you is different. You still love deeply. You still feel deeply. You still recognize soul connections in ways other people may never understand. But you are no longer willing to call suffering sacred just because it feels intense. That shift is one of the clearest signs heaven has been positioning you. Not punishing you. Positioning you. The heartbreak positioned you. The silence positioned you. The emotional detox positioned you. The unanswered message positioned you. The closure you did not receive positioned you. The friendships that faded positioned you. The nights you woke up at 3:33 positioned you. Every painful interruption was moving you out of a field where love felt like survival, and into a field where love could finally feel like truth. Not perfect truth. Not fairy tale truth. Human truth. The kind where you can be seen without performing. Loved without begging. Chosen without abandoning yourself. Held without having to disappear. That is the union heaven is positioning. Not the fantasy that requires you to betray your body. Not the old timeline where your peace depends on someone else's emotional maturity. Not the connection that makes you wake up every night wondering where you stand. A union that meets the version of you who has learned to stand with herself. And yes, this path may still feel lonely sometimes. There may still be nights when you wake up and feel that ache. There may still be dreams that leave you quiet in the morning. There may still be memories that move through your body like weather. That does not mean nothing has changed. Healing does not erase memory. Alignment does not make you emotionless. Spiritual positioning does not turn you into someone who never misses anyone. It makes you someone who can miss them, without losing yourself again. That is different. Very different. You can love what happened, and still not live inside it. You can honor the connection, and still release the timeline. You can see 3:33, and still choose peace over panic. You can feel the sign, and not turn it into a reason to chase. That is how you know your spirit is growing. The sign no longer controls you. It accompanies you. It reminds you. It steadies you. It whispers. Something is moving, even when you cannot see it yet. And maybe this is the message your soul needed tonight. You were not disturbed. You were awakened. You were not forgotten. You were being moved. You were not losing love. You were being prepared for the version of love that would not make you abandon yourself to receive it. The night you woke up at 3:33 was not the end of your peace. It may have been the beginning of your positioning, the beginning of your intuition returning, the beginning of your field clearing, the beginning of your nervous system learning that love does not have to feel like emergency, the beginning of heaven moving you closer to a union that your wounded self could not yet hold. So do not shame the nights you woke up scared. Do not shame the tears. Do not shame the longing. Do not shame the part of you that wanted the sign to mean they were coming back. That part of you was trying to survive. Hold it gently. Then let the deeper meaning rise. 333 did not come to trap you in obsession. It came to wake you into alignment. And the union being positioned now will not require the version of you who begged for proof. It will meet the version of you who learned how to become proof. Proof that heartbreak can open intuition. Proof that silence can become sacred. Proof that separation can clear the field. Proof that you can love deeply and still choose yourself. Proof that heaven can move in the dark long before life shows evidence. So the next time your eyes open in the middle of the night, and the room is still, and your phone lights up with 333, pause, breathe. Do not rush to panic. Do not rush to chase. Place your hand on your heart and ask softly, what is heaven positioning in me? Because sometimes the answer is not immediate. Sometimes the answer arrives through who you stop chasing, who you stop becoming small for, what you stop tolerating, how your body begins to relax around peace, how your intuition becomes easier to hear, how your heart slowly stops mistaking uncertainty for destiny. And one day, you may look back at those 333 nights and realize they were not interruptions. They were appointments, quiet appointments with your soul, moments where heaven woke you before your life changed, so you would be ready when it finally did. Lesson of this chapter: the night you woke up at 333 was not the end of your peace. It may have been the beginning of your positioning. Heaven was not only showing you a sign, it was moving your spirit out of old timelines, old attachments, and old emotional patterns. So your union could be positioned in a field where you no longer have to abandon yourself for love. If this message reached the part of you that has been waking up, healing, and quietly wondering whether the signs were real, comment, 333 found me for a reason. Or write, heaven is positioning my union. And if you stayed until the end, take this as confirmation. Your soul is not behind. Your healing is not random. Your silence is not empty. Heaven may already be moving things into place before your life has the proof.